I got write-ups in the newspapers, and people from different parts of Canada began to write to me on how to train. And I couldn't answer them all, so I decided, well, maybe I should put out a magazine. My mother didn't like the idea because she thought I was going to be a bum.
It was just unheard of, so she thought that Joe was nuts.
Anyway, I'm Dave Palumbo, and I'm here with Chris Aceto, and today's topic is why the new Joe Weider movie that they're coming out with is a great idea. And Chris, you know, we've obviously been in the industry a long time. Dan Solomon had this idea to get this movie going, and he's kind of, I guess, the advising producer on this movie, or exec. I think he's the co-executive producer on this movie. And he got the ball rolling, and there's a whole Hollywood cast of people. They're going to actually make a movie about the life of Joe Weider, how he brought Arnold Schwarzenegger over to America, how he started the bodybuilding revolution here with his magazines. And, you know, a lot of people think it's stupid, but I think it's a really good idea. I think it's a great idea because he really changed the scope of Hollywood even. Because think of all the movies that we have out there with all these action heroes that are muscular now. I mean, that's the Joe Weider, you know, I guess you could say movement that he started with publicizing bodybuilding, creating the Mr. Olympia contest, making muscle, you know, something that people can be proud of. Because back in my dad's day and your dad's day, no one lifted weights because if you were an athlete, they said you'd be muscle bound. So talk to me about your, you know, you've had personal experiences with Joe Weider, unlike myself who really didn't. Why is it a good idea to have the Joe Weider movie out for the general public to see?
Well, because it reminds the bodybuilding community how it got started. And I think that's important to remember where you came. It's always important to remember where you came from. I mean, this is why people like Ancestry.com, you know, I mean, people want to know, you know, how they got here. And, you know, the new generation, the social media generation, really doesn't understand where bodybuilding came from and the history, you know, and the origins of the growth of modern day bodybuilding as we know it today, and that in weight training and nutrition for that matter, because Joe Weider covered all that stuff in his magazines. So, you know, for that reason alone, it's important. You know, and I'm sure, you know, as a movie will reveal, you know, his personal life, there's going to be if they really go in depth, if they're allowed to probe and you know, tear back the curtain, so to speak, and get in the head of, you know, what Joe Weider was really all about, what he liked and what he didn't like. I mean, expect it to be it's an opportunity to be a tremendous movie, I think, because he's a pioneer. You know, I mean, I don't want to make too, you know, light of it, but, you know, you got like Elon Musk, he's a pioneer. Bill Gates, he's a pioneer. They're pioneers in their fields. He was a pioneer in weight training and bodybuilding and strength training, unlike no other.
Not only that, Chris, but we have to mention also, you know, probably, I think the meat and potatoes of the movie is not going to be about necessarily every foible and every, you know, strength that Joe Weider had, although I think it should be. I think it's going to be very focused on Arnold Schwarzenegger because Arnold, you know, was a star. And if it wasn't for Joe Weider bringing him over to America, you know, putting him up in that apartment, you know, giving him a little money to buy food, you know, I don't think that Arnold would have ever been the international star that he was. Not only movie star, governor of California, you know, super influence on not only the bodybuilding community, but American culture in general. I see Dan has, they got the writer, the guy who wrote the script is Brad Furman, who did the Lincoln Lawyer, excuse me, with Matthew McConaughey. Steve Lee Jones is the producer who did You Don't Know Jack, about Jack Kevorkian, you know, the story with
yeah,
Al Pacino.
Sure.
And George Gallo is directing it, who did Midnight Run with Robert De Niro. So they got some good people on board. They got, you know, what was interesting is that to play Arnold Schwarzenegger, they got Colin Van Moger, who we know is like a classic physique guy in our field. He looks a little like Arnold. But I don't know if he has any acting experience. Do you think that was a mistake maybe to get a bodybuilder to play such an important role in the movie?
Well, you know, I don't know. He's got to have he's got to have the body to make it believable. Two, I guess he's got to be able to master the accent. I think he has some type of accent.
Right.
And three, you know, they say Arnold wasn't a good actor anyway, so maybe he can play Arnold. But you know, no, you got to have something believable. What's believable mostly about the character who's going to play Arnold, of course, would be the physique.
Right.
You know, and then you got to get those little mannerisms down, right?
Right. Right.
So, I mean, it's going to be, you know, like I said, it's a tremendous opportunity to showcase Joe Weider, and I'm glad because, you know, when we talked about people dying recently, I kind of like somebody passed away in bodybuilding, and I said, Dave, really, nobody cares, unfortunately. You know, they don't. And, you know, I don't think often. Let's see, do I have it in my office right here? No, I used to have a picture of Joe Weider right in my office. Picture of Joe Weider, Joe and Betty Weider. You know, I don't think of Joe Weider like often, but every once in a while I think, wow, Joe Weider really paved the way for a lot of people. And it's, like I said, it's important to remember and respect those people. And Joe was like, I mean, damn. I mean, there's people can talk all they want about Joe. He's done so many things, good things for people, so many people. It's insane.
Yeah, you know, and like I said, I didn't even know Dan Solomon was involved until we were sitting at that Olympia, and he was sitting right in front of us, and they announced that he was involved at the press conference, and I was like, Dan, I didn't know you did this. He was like, yeah, I've been working on this for a while. So I think it's pretty, you know, we got to take our hats off to Dan for making this thing happen, because I don't think it would have gotten legs if he hadn't really pushed behind the scenes. So good
Who's
job.
gonna play Joe? Samir, because he's got the voice down.
You know how like with Darth Vader in Star Wars, like it's not, the actor is not the real voice. They got like James Earl Jones as the voice. That's what we got. We got to get like Samir to play the voice, and they could dub over the actor who plays him. I forget who the actor is that is playing, but I'll tell you the best cast person in the whole movie is Sergio Oliva Jr. as playing his dad. That's got to be the greatest casting of all time.
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, maybe I can play myself in that scene I explained to you yesterday, Dave. After which is the scene is I'm sitting in Joe's office, and it looks like, you know, like a Trump office. It's insane. With you know, it looks like the CEO of let's say Bank of America, not so much as CEO of a bodybuilding, you know, magazine. And Joe gives me a frosted glass of protein powder to drink, and he says, "What do you think of that?" I said, "It tastes like shit." And he went absolutely nuts because he was looking for a valid opinion other than his on what people thought of the taste of this protein powder. I didn't know, because maybe I would have been a little intimidated had he said, "This is my protein powder, what do you think?" I would have said, "Well, it could taste a little bit better," but I didn't know what I was even tasting. He said, "How's that taste?" I said, "It tastes like shit." And he called every single person into his office, Dave, who told him it tastes great. It was like a taste great, less filling commercial.
As a bodybuilding fan and growing up, you know, reading the Weider magazines, I really am interested to see what the backstory is, because I don't really know the backstory on Joe Weider. I don't really know much other than what you see in these little, you know, abbreviated documentaries that they have out there every once in a while about Joe, you know, and his brother starting this, the IFBB, and Joe printing the magazine in his bedroom or something like that. But other than that, there's got to be backstory about, you know, because, you know, they grew up very poor, I believe, in Canada, him and his brother, and of course, I'm sure, you know. You heard the little clip we played in the beginning. His mom was not happy when he said he wanted to start a bodybuilding magazine, because you know, back then no one even knew what bodybuilding was, and she's probably like, "What the hell is this guy doing?" You know, putting out pictures of guys posing. You know, so I love when I hear success stories like that, because, you know, when people doubt you and you in your mind know that that you have a passion to do something and that you know that you can get it done. I think that's the greatest, you know, validation of who you are, when you can make something that everyone else thinks is going to fail a success. And that's what Joe did. And I think it is a great story. It's an American success story. Like you said, you don't have to be able to relate to bodybuilding to be able to relate to what he did. I remember recently I just saw the story of Ray Kroc, the guy who started McDonald's. And, you know, I thought I'm not really interested in, I like to go to McDonald's, but I'm really not interested in I didn't think I would be interested in Ray Kroc's life, but the success of it and how people didn't really see what he saw was really what intrigued me watching the movie. So I think that people, even outside the bodybuilding industry, will be able to relate, especially because everyone loves Arnold Schwarzenegger too.
Dave, let me tell you this. Joe Weider probably, in stocks or real estate, especially stocks, you right? That's you've heard the saying, buy low, sell high.
Yeah.
And then they say it's hard to time the market. It's hard to time the market, especially they say that also in real estate, meaning sell before the bubble bursts.
Right.
Joe Weider sold his publications at the absolute pinnacle, catastrophic height of the evaluation.
Yeah.
So he timed it down to a month.
What do you know? Like 350 million or something like that on that?
350 million.
Crazy.
And I don't want to. I can't even fathom. They're probably worth. I mean, what are they worth now? 35 million? 10 cents on a dollar? 52 million? Something. I mean.
And they, well, now they own the Olympia too, 100%.
Well, when he,
so
keep in mind.
That might be the
most. He had the Olympia. I mean, the Olympia was his anyway. What are you talking about?
But I'm saying what was purchased from Joe Weider at the time that he sold those magazines was only 50% of the Olympia. They just bought the other 50%. So I think AMI's
I'm just talking about the magazines.
Well, I know. I'm saying I don't think the magazines are worth anything now because I don't think anyone reads magazines. But I think the brand is worth something.
Yeah.
The brand is worth something is what I'm saying. Well, it'll be interesting to see how they portray this movie, how they play it out, who gets the most airtime, like what part of the story they're going to play out. Is it going to be the younger years, the older years? I know they're going to cover both because they have two separate actors playing Joe at different stages of his life. So it'll be interesting to see, what the script is like, and because obviously if you have a shitty script, you can have a crappy movie. If you have a good script and good actors, and it seems like they do have some good actors involved, it should play out in a favorable sense. And I'm sure we'll like it no matter what, just because we know the whole, we're, I guess you could say, entrenched in the story in a sense. If Chris Aceto does have a cameo, I think that he should play himself because he still looks like he's 25 years old.
Yeah, well, I can play a cameo and be out in front of an apartment building when he told me, maybe this was a month later, he said, "Do you think I sold him too low?"
Did he really?
Yeah, he asked me the question on the phone. I know exactly. I can give you the address on a April snowy-ish day in Maine, where I spoke to him because I had to speak to him about the next company. I had a contract with Joe, and the next company was going to honor the contract, which he'd never given yearly contracts. But before he left, he made sure that I had more than a year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it was extremely generous of him, even though it wasn't his money. That was the next company's money.
What was your advice?
But he mentioned, "Do you think I sold him too low?" "Do you think I sold him too low, Chris? Do you think I should have got $352 million?"
What did you say to him?
I said, "No, that's called seller's remorse. You built it, you love it." No, I mean, you built it, you love it. It's what you did 24 hours a day for years and years and years. The natural inclination, even if you got $380 million, is to think, maybe I shouldn't have. And that's just the devil in your mind playing tricks with you. Right. That's what I told them.
Good advice. They should get you in there. Maybe now that you've worked yourself a role. If Dan?
No, you know what, Dave? You know what? I hope the executive producers actually call up people like McGuff. You can't do a movie without McGuff's input. You can't do a movie really without of course you can have Betty and Arnold's and all the old timers input, but the day-to-day operations in the magazine, like when I was young, Vince Scalise, Tom Dieters, Peter McGuff, they could sit down with you for hours and hours and tell you funny stories about Joe because they were never ending, Dave.
Plus all the editor-in-chiefs that worked over there, right? I'm sure it was also...
Yeah, I mean, those are the editors. Those are the three big editors. Those are the people who sat outside his office, and seen every single bodybuilder go up there, and have to wait nervously in the intimidated office to go in and speak with him and beg him for something.
Yeah, that's true. Well, once again, great idea for a movie. We gave plenty of reasons why it's a terrific idea. Can't wait till it gets made. Dan Solomon, great job, and keep us updated when we can actually see this in theaters, because now our appetites are wet. We want to see what you guys produce. Dave Palumbo here with Chris Aceto for another episode of RxMuscle Rant.